I'm Dr. Jeneve Brooks, and I'm about to be on the Dr. Walter Sam Show.
For all of your healthcare needs, go to Health Concepts, located at 1901 Wise Drive here in Dothan, Alabama. Their hours are Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. and on Saturdays from 10 o'clock a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. and they're closed on Sunday. Listen, when you get over there, when you go get some of that alkaline water, the best water in the Wiregrass, will you please tell them Dr. Sim sent you?
Hey, I'm Jessica. I was going to let everybody know that we all love the Dr. Walter Sim Show.
For all your family dentistry needs, go see my friends over at Dandridge Dental Family Dentistry. Dr. Michelle Dandridge and Stella Ferry will be glad to service you. They are located at 1435 Ross Clark Circle, Suite A, here in Dothan, Alabama. They're located on the south side of the circle near Southern Bone and Joint. You can call them at 334-699-2220. And when you get there, tell them Dr. Sam sent you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jeneve Brooks, and I'm a sociologist here at Troy Dothan, and we had a discussion today on race relations, and we invited key leaders in the community to talk about race, and as well as we also had participants that broke into discussion groups and mixed race discussion groups and talking about race more interpersonally. So we're dealing with policy issues involving the police and involving the schools, but also just more generally thinking about how we can improve race relations locally.
Oh, that is so good. So in your estimation, what's the biggest thing we all could do to improve race relations?
I would say to have more serious friendships that where you're going into each other's homes, you're breaking bread together, hanging out. It's one thing to have colleagues, and a lot of people say, well, I have a lot of, friends at work that are different race or in school of a different race, but how much do you actually dig in and actually develop deeper relationships? And that's one thing I would say to cross the boundaries.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Dr. Brooks.
Hey, I'm Precious Freeman, president of the Dothan Community Relations Group. We just finished our dialogue on race relations here at Troy University Dothan campus. The whole purpose for me is to make our world safer and more united for our children. And I think that we are going to do that. And I'm super pumped and excited that people came out and they asked questions. And I do believe that we can go somewhere from here. It was very impactful. So you guys need to reach out and see how you can help as well in the future. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Well, that's good. Well, how do people get in touch with you and the group that you're working with if they wanted to be a part of what you're doing with race relations?
Check us out on Facebook. Dothan Community Relations Group has a page, and we answer our messages pretty swiftly, I think. You can also email us at dothancrg@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Precious.
Don't forget to watch the Dr. Walter Sims Show every Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time on Fox 34.
Over the past few months, we've talked a lot about what our school system could be doing differently, and we've spoken about our police department and what they should be doing differently. This really is a question about responsibility, and from your perspective in all areas and all walks of your life, we'd like to hear your thoughts on living in Dothan, primarily as an African-American man. In your opinion, and this is a few parts, what do you believe the police can do as far as making our community relations better? Our educators, as well as citizens and parents. What can they do to make our community stronger?
Well, as I said, I've been in Dothan since '92, and honestly, I enjoy every parts of this city. Being raised in Miami, I've seen a whole lot of things that shouldn't really be seen due to race relations. I've been through the Arthur McDuffie riots back in '82, if I believe that's what it was. Not only that, but there was other riots in '89. There's a lot of things that happen in Miami that I do not see here. And this is more of an area where I have no problem in raising my children. Race related, yeah, there's a lot of things that could be, could be different, but on a whole, there's a lot of things that are right, in my opinion. There's one thing that I like to always tell my children. Just because things are made in this time era, electronically or technology, doesn't mean that it's the best for this era. Saying that, I would like to say that a lot of things that are being done, just because we're doing things differently, do we really have to do things differently? A lot of the time, I believe that some of the things that we grew up with are some of the things that our children today should still be growing up with. As far as the police department, one thing that I see that has been taken from the police department is walking the beat. There's a lot of patrolling going on in the areas, and it's turning police officers into untouchables. They're unapproachable, not because they're trying to be unapproachable, but they just give off the aura of I can't be approached because I'm in the vehicle, I'm zooming past. So that in turn gives people a mind frame that they're not going to be bothered. They shouldn't be bothered. Where back in the day, you had Officer Smith walking the beat. He knew who lived where. He knew the people who lived in that house. He knew the children. He knew the parents. He knew the next door neighbors. If there was a problem, they could go to him without an issue. So I believe a lot of times police really need to get out of the cars. Just be a part of the community once again. Don't police from the cars, which I understand why they are, because of technology. A lot of things that they have are in the vehicles, computers and things like that. But sometimes we need to get back to our roots, get back to being one-on-one with people, learn people. Education-wise, I was speaking with Dr. Ledbetter about, we as parents, with the prices of everything, we almost need 2 jobs to survive in this day and age. It's hard to be a parent to a child in school and be active in school. A lot of parents visit schools. The only reason they visit the school is because their children are in trouble. We need to get away from that. We need to stop being the parent that's going up to schools and saying, what has my child done, or what has the teacher done to my child, and be the parent that's saying, I'm here at this school, what can I do for you? What can I do before more children get in trouble? What can I do to help you out? We need to be more active in our communities. We need to be active with the police force. We need to give our time, give our efforts to help out everybody that's trying to help us out.
Hey, if you need to ship something in a hurry, go see my friends at Safe Ship, located at 2371 Murphy Mill Road, unit number 8 here in Dothan, Alabama. They will make sure that it is packaged just right so nothing will be damaged between here and there. Listen, they're open from 9 a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. Monday through Friday, and they close a little early on Saturday at 3 o'clock p.m. Listen, if you need to contact them, dial 334-677-SHIP. That's 334-677-7447. And when you get there, tell them Dr. Sim sent you.
Don't forget to watch the Dr. Walter Sims Show every Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time on Fox 34.
16 years ago, you founded the Henry County chapter of the Sons of the Confederate Veterans. 11 years ago, this chapter dissolved. Why did the chapter dissolve? What did that experience mean to you then and now? And do you have any regrets?
Okay. Can you hear me? I think in order to answer that fully, I think I need to take everybody back to probably around 1990, when I really started developing a passion for for history, and particularly the American Civil War. Over the next several years, I really became consumed, I believe, in the study of the Civil War battles incorporated in there. I also started studying my family genealogy and tracing back my ancestry to see if there were any individuals that were related to me that were either in the American Revolution War or the Civil War, and found several of my great-great-grandfathers and great-great-great-grandfathers that were soldiers for the South during the Civil War. That piqued my interest as to what regiments they were assigned to, what companies, what armies, etc. And I did the research on those. I sent off to the National Archives to find out, to get the actual records from there. And over the period of probably the next 10 years, I toured Civil War battlefields throughout the country. I've been to probably every major Civil War battlefield in the country: Gettysburg, Antietam, Fredericksburg. There's still a lot of them I want to see. But with that understanding, and I speak to the Sons of Confederate Veterans in the time frame in which I was a member, which was around 99 through, I think, 2005, 2006. I thought it would be a novel idea to have an SCV chapter in Henry County. As I've said before, Henry County, of course, is one of the oldest counties in the state of Alabama. And with that, I filed application for a chapter in Henry County. At the time, it was a 501c3. I'm not sure if it still is. I believe it still is, but irregardless, the chapter was formed, and the primary focus of the chapter was to place markers at the sites where some of the soldiers who fought for the South graves had become in disrepair. So over the period of the next several years, we probably placed, I think, 12 to 15 markers perhaps. There was an extensive paperwork process to get that done. So we did that, and as time continued on, there was probably less interest. The meetings went from probably once a month to every other month, and certainly being the chief cook and bottle washer and doing all the paperwork, setting up the programs and things like that, it just became, it started spreading out. And along that same time, to get really kind of personal with my life, I think, first of all, I think we all go through a maturing phase. Obviously, physically is the most noticeable. I think that we go through an emotional and mental maturing as well. But what I've experienced, I've been a Christian all my life, and my spiritual maturity kind of kicked in, I guess. I believe that I started studying the Bible more and less of history. History is still a passion of mine. But in my studying, I see where, if something offends someone else, it's in the Bible several times in several different chapters that we shouldn't do it. And that played a part into that as well. While my intentions were not to say I believed in slavery or I believed the South should have won the war. The United States of America is a great country, and it's a great country because it's a united country. So the camp pretty much dissolved, at that point. And my career continued with the police department. As far as regrets, I don't have any regrets that my passion for history is such that it makes me prideful of maybe where I come from. But I do regret the stigma that has been associated with that passion, not having any malicious intent in mind at the time that was going on.
Thank you. Thank you for being so clear, too.
Don't forget to watch the Dr. Walter Sims Show every Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time on Fox 34.
Recently, the Southern Poverty Law Center hosted several open meetings of the Boys and Girls Club of Houston. During this time, parents and students were able to express their concerns about Dothan City Schools. SPLC also presented very alarming data showing the disparity between the amount of suspensions of white students versus the suspensions of black students. So those numbers went along the lines of 55%, and these numbers were from 2011-2012 school year, so Dr. Ledbetter was not here. However, this is how those numbers went. 55% of the student body is African American. 82% of in-school suspensions were African American, 84% of out-of-school suspensions were African American, and 100% of expulsions were African American. Around 87% of students who were arrested on campus were African Americans. Okay, with that being said, I want to know if you reviewed these numbers. I'm sure at this point you have. And if so, can you explain the disparity and whether or not you have a plan to improve these numbers?
Sure. Yes, of course we have. I've looked at that, and I've also looked at more current numbers. And I can also tell you that prior to even my coming here, there had been a lot of work being done to try to change some of that. But it's a very complex issue. And I'll say it's not as simple as looking at what the numbers and African American and white and other races, because intertwined through all that is the issue of poverty. And in schools, we have to address all the issues. Whatever's in our community comes in our school. And sometimes, if you look at what Congress and state legislatures and all do, we try to fix everything with schools. Well, we can't. At the same time, we've got to address everything because we've got to help that student get where they need to go. I actually pulled our data for this year, and what was really interesting is, while 67% of our students are poverty level students, get a free or reduced lunch by using that as a standard, 87% of our discipline referrals come from students of poverty. And so you look at that and you start to realize, okay, not only do we have to deal with race as an issue, but even a bigger factor and an overlying factor over a lot of that is our students of poverty, and the fact that an overwhelming number of our students of poverty are also African American. And so all of that kind of comes together in a lot of ways, and so we don't have the luxury of being able to look for a single factor, because there's not a single factor, it's a multi-factor thing. So there's not a silver bullet. There's not well, if we just do one thing, everything's going to be better. So it's something that we have to look at and attack from a many-pronged approach. And it's something that we've been working on, things like changing the way we do discipline. For years, and a lot of parents would call when I was a principal, their son got in a fight. And, we'll just give him 3 licks and send him back to class. That's what I did when I was in school. Well, times are different. And fighting is a more serious issue a lot of times than it used to be. We consider it a more serious issue. And so, while we still have the ability to use corporal punishment, we use it very sparingly. And corporal punishment is not good for everybody. There are some cases, where it can be helpful, and sometimes I do believe. I don't think it's necessarily should be done away with. But you also have to know who you're dealing with, and you have to have a partnership with those parents, and you have to all be on the same page. And one of the things that we find with students who have been on the outside, and whether you call that because of race or because of poverty or for whatever, with parents who have been there, it's sometimes very difficult for us to build partnerships with those families. And so we're working really hard to do that. And we're trying to go out. We have parent involvement specialists now who really try to help us build relationships with the home. One thing that I found, and I knew before coming here because I did my homework, but also grew up just up the road in Auburn, and one thing that I've seen in Dothan is the difference between Dothan and Auburn and where I was in Alex City, Dadeville area, and where I was in Dublin, Georgia, is that it's the same personalities and problems with different names and faces. You know, I've lived this all my life. I understand the people. I understand everybody around me. Everybody around me, you know, I may have met you today, but I probably have a friend just like you in my past. And so, you know, this isn't new. But at the same time, as we work on it, we have to work on it in a many-pronged approach. We did it over in Georgia. We're doing it here. They were doing it before I got here. I can't claim credit for it, but we're continuing to work on it. Part of that, as I say, is you look at what our discipline issues are. How do we discipline? You know, one thing that we have to really teach our teachers, is particularly students of poverty are often not motivated by grades. And we do our students a disservice when we quote-unquote discipline with grades. You know, oh, you're going to get a 0 on that paper because you didn't do it the way I wanted, or because you didn't turn it in on time. Well, you know, I have a lot of students, and I always have, when I was teaching, when I was a principal, who would say, okay, how many zeros can I get and still pass? Because the game was, how little work can I do and get through this? And teachers don't get that a lot of times because teachers, by definition, were motivated by grades or they wouldn't be teaching. You know, I mean, we played the game, we enjoyed the game, and we got the game. But then there are other students out there who are playing a different game. And we've got to be on the same page and understand that. As a middle school principal, we put in a zeros aren't permitted policy, which meant not that somebody could get away with not doing not doing the work and not making a 0. No, the point was the work had to be done. You couldn't get around it. So if you didn't turn it in, if it was, you know, my homework's due tomorrow and I don't turn it in, well, I have the next day to get it turned in, and I can't make above a 70 on it. It has to be above 70 work, but I couldn't make above a 70 on the grade. So the students who turned it in on time didn't get cheated out of, you know, these other guys are getting the same grade I'm getting. But if you didn't have it that day, the third day, that day we would send a message home to your parents and say, you're staying after school 2 hours tomorrow to get that homework done. It wasn't a discipline referral, it wasn't a detention, it was you're going to sit here and you're going to do that work, and then you're going to do whatever work else you have, because until 5 o'clock you're not going home. And guess what? Homework started getting done. Work started getting turned in. And all of a sudden, our passage rate started going up because kids weren't able to get away with not doing the work. But it's a different mindset for a teacher who's always had, their life has been, by gosh, the grade's the big deal. And so teaching the differences in the way different students think is really important for all of our faculty to understand. We also have to really work on educating our students. You know, I had an assistant superintendent over in Georgia who was really big as both as a principal and then as assistant superintendent. I know I'm about to run out of time, but I want to get this in.
Don't forget to watch the Dr. Walter Sims Show every Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time on Fox 34.
Well, that's a great segue into Raymond. Okay, so I'm just the messenger on this one. Dr. Brooks wrote this question for Raymond. As a minister and millennial thought leader, what do you think people, each of us individually, should do to improve race relations here in the Wiregrass? What types of specific activities should each of us here do to take personal responsibility for improving race relations in our community? Furthermore, what type of specific leadership activities will you offer the community in the area of race relations moving forward?
As a millennial thought leader, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'll figure out what that is. There's 3 parts to that question. And so I think the first about, what each of us can do individually to improve race relations. I think it's to first inform ourselves, to be intelligent about diversity, racial diversity. I think sometimes, we're a nation of very intelligent people, but sometimes we can be stupid. It's stupid when you see something that's very overt, something that's very obvious, and you say it's not so. We have laws and all sorts of controversial issues that are up right now that have nothing to do with race, but we're a nation that's departed from truth, in my opinion, and it's just obvious. Nothing's right anymore. I actually think that maybe in 10 years or so, people will say 2 + 2 is 4, and we'll go, no, I don't feel like that's what it is. And we'll take you to court over that. And win, right? We'll win. So it's all about not offending people, but in order to get to the bottom of things and change, we have to be willing to be honest about what we see. There's a lot of racism in this nation, and it's not just white against black or black against white, and it's offensive. If I were Asian, I'd be very offended that you didn't point that racism toward me, because, I would be in the nation too, right? So the first thing is just being intelligent about it. The scriptures tell us that we're not to fellowship with the works of darkness, anything that's hidden, that it won't be acknowledged, but rather reprove them. And so we're to speak out against certain things we see. When we go to church every Sunday, I see racism every single Sunday. Are you going to a white church or a black church? You know what I mean? It's kind of like, it's crazy. And then you go into a church, and I actually visited a church that was predominantly Caucasian, and my sister was there, and so I walk in, this guy's looking really tense, and he ends up telling me, he goes, hey, do you know my brother-in-law? And I just happen to know him. He's my brother-in-law. Go figure. He got lucky that time. He said, well, I'll seat you next to him. Not, do you want to sit? Everyone else is sitting where they want. But I'm told, I'll seat you next to him. And so I'm like, okay. So I go, and I'm seated next to him. And then the next Sunday when I came in, I'll seat you next to your brother-in-law. When I look around, it's like the Negro section. I look around, there's like all the other colored people are together. I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. And so they told us to be ourselves. So I'm going to be myself. And so, I think the first things first is just become intelligent about it. Be honest about what you see. But at the same time, don't blame anybody. Because everybody is a little bit racially biased in some way, shape, or form. We've been trained that way through media. We have, I look at cartoons with my children, and it's very hard to find a Jesus that's not white. It's like you have to make Jesus, who could have taken any physical form he wanted. He chose to be a person of color, and he has to be white for me to worship him. It's crazy, And so, what would Jesus have looked like? I remember sitting in a church going, would Jesus be taken to the front row if he were here physically?
What's up, everybody? I am Nallorence Walker Davis, and I am the voice of What's Up Wiregrass. If you have an upcoming event, anything that you would like to be promoted, you can email me at nallorence@gmail.com. That's NALARENCE@gmail.com. What's up, Wiregrass?